Did you know that Fruit Loops don't even contain any real fruit? Let's veganize our childhood favorite, make it healthier and plant-based. Welcome to my channel. My name is Trederica and all my social media is at my Black Girl Roots. You can like and follow me on all my platforms. Today we are making vegan protein Fruit Loops. So I know everybody is very familiar with the brand Fruit Loops, but there are a lot of ingredients in Fruit Loops that I prefer not to eat and that are very toxic to the body. Dyes, artificial colors, and things like that, additives that are in there. So even though I'm vegan, I do more of a whole food plant-based lifestyle. I like to tell people I'm 90% whole food plant-based and then 10% vegan as far as the food that I eat. I've already posted basically like a mini tutorial in a reel of this on all my socials, and it really went viral. I just posted it yesterday and it was going viral, so I was like, hey, let me go ahead and make a YouTube video for you guys, because I know that this could be a little bit of a process for some people in learning. So I'm going to be actually using these ingredients, and this time I'm going to be using fruit powders. I know some people wanted me to actually use fruit powders. Let me show you everything I have and let's get started. So for my flours, I'm going to be using oat flour, coconut flour, and almond flour. All of these flours are great examples to use if you are gluten-free. Then these are the freeze-dried fruit I'm using. I'm just going to grind them to make powders. You can buy fruit powders from Amazon, but I chose to do this because it was a cheaper option. Then this greens powder I already had, so it was perfect to use for this recipe. For my plant milk, I made my own hemp milk as always. I'll put the other ingredients on the screen during the recipe. So first, I'm just going to show you how I grinded up all my freeze-dried fruit to make the powders. I just used my blender from Our Place and it took a couple of pulses. I've never seen freeze-dried apples that have like the skin still on them, so that's new. If you're making this recipe, I definitely recommend to grind your fruit powders when you're ready to add them to the dough, because they can absorb moisture and stick together during the recipe. Alright, so the very last one I'm doing is the freeze-dried blueberries. This one I am the most excited about to see the color. I'm really hoping it gets a really vibrant blue color. If not, I only have just like a little bit of blue spirulina, so I could use that, but I'm hoping that this is enough. This is how all the fruit powders look right after I grinded them. Alright, so now that I'm done doing the fruit powders, we're going to go ahead and start on my dry ingredients. You're going to do your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients separate. And then also with this recipe, know that it's going to be different from the one that I posted on the reel, because a lot of people say, is it crunchy? Why didn't you use fruit powder? So I'm already using the fruit powders that you guys wanted me to use. Now I'm going to attempt to make it more crunchy. So the ingredients, I think the applesauce, I'm going to reduce that from a half a cup to 1/3 of a cup to kind of make the dough drier, so that it's more crunchy. Also, I wanted to note that I'm going to be using flours that I got from Sprouts. I wanted to use store-bought ones that were organic, and things that you can find at the store, because I make my own flours, like oat flour, coconut flour, almond flour. I make those myself, but if you would like to buy one at the store, I want people to have ones to choose from that I use exactly. So that's why I'm using some ones from the store instead in this video. But I made my own for the reel, so if you want to see how I did that, you can go back to my Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook and see that reel. For our dry ingredients, we're going to go ahead and add all those to the bowl. If you're looking for a protein powder to use, I always recommend Compliment, because it only has 5 ingredients. You just mix those all together before the next step. Okay, so now that we have our dry ingredients, we're going to move on to our wet ingredients. And this is where the sweetness comes from in the cereal. So I'm using agave and also applesauce. It also means that there's no refined sugar in here, so everything is just sweetened with natural sugars as well as the fruit powders. For my wet ingredients, I'm only using a few. My applesauce only has 1 ingredient, apples, and then I made my own homemade hemp milk. Once you have all your ingredients combined, you'll just whisk it together and then add it to your dry batter. I just mixed that up a little before actually kneading the dough. And this is where I realized that the dough reacted differently with the half cup versus the third a cup. The recipe was way better with the half a cup when I used the flours from the store versus my homemade flours. Alright, so now that we have our dough, we're going to go ahead and split it up in 4 equal parts so that we can put all the fruit powders in each one. So all I did was separate them to 4 equal parts, and then I started off with the strawberry. With the strawberry, I also added in some beetroot powder to amplify the color. Next is green, and I actually used the apple powder and the super greens powder. And like in my previous reel, I added some turmeric to brighten that color up. And next is the blueberry powder, and I only had like a tiny bit of blue spirulina, so I added that in plus the beetroot to get that color. And lastly is the yellow, and I used the mango powder and turmeric for that one. Once you're done kneading the colors into your dough, you'll move on to actually making the Fruit Loops. And let me tell you, this process was much easier the first time around when I did not cut the applesauce in the recipe. You only need to reduce the amount of applesauce if you're using a homemade flour. Even though this dough was drier, I managed to get it done. To make the Fruit Loops, all I did was roll it around in my hand and then use a chopstick to poke a hole through it. After that, I just placed them on my parchment paper. So now I'm going to make all of these loops and then I will be back. Doing this recipe, I was also doing a little more experimenting, so I rolled out my dough and also used a cookie cutter to make little flowers. And the method I used was to keep the oven open after they cool and to reduce the temperature. I am actually about to go ahead and redo this simply because this time I used all flours from the store, so I don't think that cutting the applesauce is really needed. So I'm going to redo these really quick and then show you the difference between both of them, because cutting the applesauce with this recipe actually made them a little more drier, so it made it harder to make the loops. But I'm going to again retry so that we can see the difference. This is with the third a cup of applesauce versus the half cup, and these are much neater. I was much happier with this result and even better than the first time I made them. This is only the second time I'm experimenting with this recipe, and I think I did pretty good. You can also see how my change of method made a difference in the Fruit Loops. They still don't have that traditional Fruit Loop crunch, but they're a lot better than the first time. The best way I can describe it is more like a cookie texture, but a firm cookie. And it's really funny because the first time I made these, I actually was trying to make rainbow cookies versus Fruit Loops. I really love the way the recipe turned out. Maddie snacks on these, and she also eats them as cereal. If you're making these for yourself and your family, I would definitely say take your time and experiment to see what works best for you. I can't wait to try to make even more of my childhood favorite cereals. Here's the results again of the first time versus this time, and I think they look a lot better. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and this recipe, please like this video and subscribe to me to see more of my content, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.